graders, what you need to be able to do in 8th grade is you need to be able to find the volume of a cylinder, a cone, and a sphere. So we're going to start with the cylinder. The formula for a cylinder is V equals pi r squared times the height. And over here you notice our shape that we have. We have 3 as the radius and 10 as the height. All right, they gave us the radius because they did halfway from the center of the circle out. So our radius is already given to us, and I always just like to write that over here so I remember that this is the number I'm going to be plugging in. I'll be starting with my formula, V equals pi r squared times the height. I write another V down. Pi is 3.14, so I'm going to type that into my calculator, times, what is the radius? The radius. But I have to do it twice, so that's radius, times the height of the whole shape is 10. And all I do, guys, is punch these numbers in my calculator, and then I shall get my answer. So if I punch those in, 3.14 times 3 times 3 times 10, my answer is 282 and 6/10. And since this is centimeters, I put my cm. And whenever you're dealing with volume, that is always cubed. So I put a little 3. That is my answer. Easy as pie. Okay, now I want to do another example with you guys. I'm just going to erase part of this right now. Sometimes, and the trickiest part is when you're working with different cylinders. Let's say this is 12 inches this time, and we'll do the diameter all the way across. Let's say they tell us it is 5, for instance. Okay, and they tell us it's 5 inches all the way across. Now, since they gave us all the way across, the very first thing that I do is I want to find my radius. And right now they're giving me the diameter. They're giving me all the way across. I do not need all the way across. There is nothing in this formula that has a D for diameter. They have an R for radius, and radius is halfway across. So in my calculator or in my head, I need to figure out what half of 5 is. Okay, now if you do not know how this in your head, in your calculator you're going to push 5 divided by 2, and it will tell you what half is. So that was 5 divided by 2 to figure out the radius, and the radius is 2.5. Okay, now I can plug the numbers into my formula. I start with pi, so I'm going to write 3.14, or you may use your pi button. Then I'm going to do times the radius twice. So the radius is 2.5, so I do 2.5 times 2.5 times the height of my shape is 12. Am I running off the board here? I'm very, very close. Then I'm just going to punch that all in my calculator and see what my final answer is. So if I do 3.14 times 2.5 times 2.5 times 12, I get 235 and 5/10. And since I'm dealing with inches this time, I write inches. And then since we're dealing with the volume, it is cubed. And that is how you do and plug in your numbers for a cylinder. Okay? Hopefully that was easy for you. We're going to go on now to the cone, which also isn't bad. I'm going to draw a picture of a nice cone here for you. Write the formula, and we can work on that one. If this is a cone can be either upside down or more like an ice cream cone. This one's pointing downward like a hat, like a party hat. Once again, same thing. You may be given the diameter or you're given the radius. And in this case, let's say they give us 12.5 centimeters, and the height from the top to the bottom, let's say, is 15 centimeters. Okay? Our formula for this one, for a cone, is, I'm going to write cone up here for you, even though I know you know what it is. Volume equals, I believe it's 1/3 pi r squared times the height. Okay? So for this one, once again, same thing. Since I do not see a D up here for diameter, because that's what they give me is the diameter, I've got to figure out what my radius is. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to write R equals, and if I don't know this, half of this in my head, I've got to use my calculator. So once again, I'm going to punch in 12.5 divided by, hopefully you remember, 2, and you're going to get 6.25. So that, my friends, is your radius. Now I can plug my numbers in. So I have 1/3, don't get freaked out by the fraction, times pi, which is 3.14, times 6.25. I'm going to put squared here, times the height of the shape from the tip down to the center, which is 15. Okay, now I could have put in here 6.25 times 6.25, but my hand's getting a little tired, so I didn't really want to do that. Now I'm going to punch my numbers in. Now don't get freaked when you see this fraction. It's no big deal. All you do in your calculator is do 1 divided by 3 in your calculator. So you do 1 divided by 3 times 3.14 times, now this I'm going to do a little differently this time. You can punch in 6.25 times 6.25, or you can do times 6.25, hit the little caret button, which is that little up arrow, hello, and then hit a little 2 because it's squared, and then times your 15. If you do that, you're going to get 613 for your volume, 613, and I'm going to do 2800s. I usually write 2 numbers after the decimal point. That is centimeters cubed, which would be the volume of your cone, the space inside your cone. All right? Now, I do want to show you something interesting about the cone, because the cone is one of the most challenging shapes because they do not always give you the height. Sometimes they give you the slant. So this one's a little bit more challenging. Just as a review for you, the formula stays the same, but let's make this a little more simple over here. Let's say they do not give us the height, and we'll have them give us the radius this time, just to be nice to you guys. Okay, so if they give me the radius, which I definitely need, and let's say they say it's 4 inches. And let's say this time they give us the slant of this, and we'll say it's 12 inches. Okay? If they give you the slant, there's nothing up here that says you can plug in an S for the slant. We do not have the height. So before you can plug the numbers in, you have to find the height of the shape. Now, if we say, well, how do we do that? Well, I have one straight line here, and I have a diagonal line here. And if you look and we draw the height coming down, what shape do you see in this position? Hopefully, if I drew it nicely, you should see a nice right triangle. And since we've been working with right triangles lately, we know if we have what this longest side would be called the hypotenuse, and we have one of the legs, we know that we can find this other leg by using, hopefully you know, give you a second, drum roll, Pythagorean theorem. All right, so we all know Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So you would write your formula down. Okay, I have one of my legs, so I'll call that the a squared. If you want to skip this step and do that in your head, what is 4 times 4? You might already know that that's 16 plus, we do not have b squared, but we do have our hypotenuse, or our c squared. If you know 12 times 12 in your head, you can go ahead and write that down, which is 144. Then we'll draw our line and solve our equation. So this would be minus 16 and minus 16. I am finally left with b squared, and I bring that down. Okay, 144 take away 16. I can do that subtraction, or I can do that right in my calculator. And I'm going to get 128. And then in my calculator, I definitely am going to find the square root of 128. Now, if you've forgotten how to find the square root, you're going to hit the second button, then x2, punch in your 128, and enter, and you'll get 11.3. So b, or the height, is equal to 11.3. Now I can take, I don't even need this 12 anymore. I can plug these numbers into my formula to find the volume of this shape. So I'm going to do 1 divided by 3 times 3.14 times 11.3 squared times the height, I want you to do this with me. Oh, excuse me, not 11.3 squared. Is that right? We've got 3.14 times 4 squared, sorry guys, times finally the height, which would be 11.3. Okay, when I plug those numbers in my calculator, remember this just means 1 divided by 3, and then times 3.14 times 4. I can either do 4 times 4 there, or 4 caret squared times the height, which is 11.3, and I get my final answer. The volume, or the space inside of this cone, is 189.24 inches, and since we're dealing with volume, it is cubed. Okay? I have one more final shape to show you, and that is the sphere. I know you probably want me to do one more of these because you love them, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go on to our final shape, which is a sphere. A 3D shape that is a sphere could be like a basketball or a volleyball, something like that. How much air would you need inside of it? That type of thing. So if this is my sphere, and they typically would give us the radius or the diameter. For this one, once again, for a sphere, we do need the radius. For this one, it's kind of a weird formula. It's 4/3. Sorry, my markers are not working very well. Pi radius cubed this time. Okay, so we have a different formula there. So make sure you get that written down. These markers are not working. For this one, if I tell you that the radius is 5, we know we need the radius, so that's very, very important. All you're going to do in your calculator is just 4 divided by 3 times your 3.14 times whatever the radius is. This time they gave it to us, 5. And this time we're going to cube it. So if you're using your calculator, you can either do 5 times 5 times 5, and I know that's 125, or I can punch in 5 with a little caret and then a 3, and then hit my enter button. And once again, we'll do that quickly. 4 divided by 3 times 3.14 times 5 caret cubed, and I get 523.3 repeating, and let's say that was centimeters cubed because we're dealing with volume. Okay, hopefully that helps. I know not the best video, but hopefully it gets you ready for an upcoming quiz or test. All right, thanks guys.